I have seen a lot in my 43 years on the bench. I have watched people lie to my face, cry crocodile tears, and try every trick in the book to buy their way out of trouble. I have had wealthy men slide checkbooks across my bench, powerful women threaten to end my career, and more lawyers than I can count tell me their client was too important to be held accountable. But I have never, in all my decades wearing this robe, had a man look me dead in the eye and tell me that his phone application was worth more than the American justice system, until the morning of January 22, 2024, at exactly 9:53 a.m., when a tech CEO named Landon James Prescott walked into my Providence courtroom in sneakers that cost more than a used car and told me my courtroom was not worth his time. That man walked in with everything. He left with nothing. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what I am about to tell you is going to make your blood boil, and then remind you why this country still works. Let me take you back to how this whole thing started. The case file on my bench had more pages than I usually see. Case number 2024-CR1147, aggravated assault, intimidation, destruction of property, and filing a false police report. The defendant was Landon James Prescott, age 41, founder and CEO of Vantage Technologies, a social media company valued at $6.3 billion on the NASDAQ. Forbes had him at a personal net worth of $1.7 billion. He had been on magazine covers. He had given a TED Talk. He had 412,000 followers on the platform he built, and he ran his company from a glass tower on the waterfront in Providence that bore his name in chrome letters 40 feet tall. The complainant was a man named Henry Arthur Benton, age 71, a night security guard at the Prescott Technology Center, the very building that Landon Prescott owned. Now let me tell you about Henry Benton, because you need to know this man before I tell you what was done to him. Henry served 22 years in the United States Army. He enlisted in 1970 at age 18 and was deployed to Vietnam with the 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile, out of Fort Hood. He earned a Purple Heart after taking a round through his right shoulder during the Battle of Fire Support Base Ripcord in July of 1970. That wound left him with limited mobility in his right arm for the rest of his life. When Henry came home from Vietnam, nobody threw him a parade. He got a factory job. He got married. He raised 3 children. His wife Dorothy passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2019. After Dorothy died, Henry could not afford to retire. His pension from the factory had been gutted when the company went bankrupt in 2008. Social Security covered his rent and groceries barely. So at 68 years old, Henry Benton put on a uniform again. Not a military uniform this time, but a navy blue security guard polo and a clip-on badge that said Allied Protection Services. He worked the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., at the Prescott Technology Center. He made $12.75 an hour, $12.75 to sit in a lobby all night, watching a building worth hundreds of millions of dollars, for a man worth $1.7 billion. Henry had a granddaughter named Sophie. She was 9 years old, the daughter of Henry's son Michael, who had been killed in a construction accident 4 years earlier. Henry helped raise Sophie after Michael died. She had been diagnosed with childhood epilepsy at age 6. The medications cost over $600 a month. Henry contributed what he could. He picked up extra shifts when Allied would let him. He had $780 in his savings account. This man, who had bled for his country in Vietnam and buried his wife and lost his son, was working the graveyard shift at 71 years old so he could help pay for his granddaughter's seizure medication. He never complained. The other guards told me that, not once. If you have ever watched someone you love grow old and keep fighting, if you have ever felt that ache in your chest for a person who deserved more than life gave them, then please subscribe to this channel. We are a family here fighting for justice and compassion. Join us now. When Henry walked into my courtroom that morning, he was wearing a brown suit. It was clean, pressed, and at least 20 years old. His tie was burgundy, tied in a perfect Windsor knot, the kind of precision you only see in military men. His shoes were brown leather, polished to a shine despite the cracks running through both soles. His right arm hung slightly stiff at his side, the one that took the bullet in Vietnam. He sat down with his back straight, hands resting on his knees, eyes forward, quiet, dignified. Every inch a soldier, even at 71. On the night of December 8th, 2023, at approximately 2:17 a.m., Henry was sitting at his security desk in the lobby of the Prescott Technology Center. It was a quiet night. The building was empty except for Henry and one other guard on the upper floors. At approximately 2:20 a.m., a Tesla Model X Plaid, matte black with custom trim, valued at over $140,000, pulled into the building's private parking garage at high speed. The security gate arm snapped off. Henry heard the crash on his monitor. He radioed the other guard, grabbed his flashlight, and walked down to the garage to investigate. He found Landon Prescott stumbling out of the Tesla. The driver's side door had a fresh scrape. The garage gate arm was on the ground in pieces. Prescott was intoxicated. Henry could smell the alcohol from 6 feet away. Henry, doing his job, said, "Sir, are you all right? I need to file an incident report." And that is when the night went wrong. Prescott was wearing a Balenciaga hoodie, black, retail value around $1,700. His sneakers were a limited edition Nike collaboration that resold for approximately $4,000. His watch was a Richard Mille, one of those skeleton face pieces that look like a spaceship, retail value around $350,000. This man was wearing a watch on his wrist that was worth more than Henry Benton had earned in the last 25 years combined. Prescott looked at Henry. He did not see a veteran. He did not see a 71-year-old man working the graveyard shift to help his granddaughter. He saw a uniform. He saw a badge that said $12.75 an hour. And he said, and this was captured on the building's internal security camera with full audio, "Get out of my way, old man. I own this building. I own you. You are a glorified doorman. Do not talk to me like we are the same." Henry, calm as always, said, "Sir, I still need to file the report. It is procedure." Prescott stepped forward and shoved Henry in the chest with both hands. Henry stumbled backward into the concrete wall of the garage. His head hit the wall. He went down. He was 71 years old, with a shoulder that had never fully healed from a bullet wound in Vietnam, and he hit that concrete floor hard. Then Prescott stood over him and said the words that I had to read 3 times in the police report because I could not believe a human being would say them. He said, "If you file anything, I will have you fired, blacklisted, and sleeping under a bridge by Friday. People like you are replaceable. My app has 200 million users. You are nothing." Let me say that again. This billionaire stood over a 71-year-old Purple Heart recipient lying on a garage floor and told him he was nothing, that he was replaceable, that a phone application mattered more than a man who bled for this country. Drop a comment right now and tell me what you think happens next. And if you believe nobody is above the law, hit that like button. Because what this man did after was even worse. Prescott drove the damaged Tesla up to the executive level and took his private elevator to his penthouse office. Henry lay on that garage floor for 7 minutes before the other guard found him. He had a concussion, a bruised vertebra, and a gash on the back of his head that required 9 stitches. He was taken to Rhode Island Hospital. The next morning, Prescott's chief of staff called Allied Protection Services and had Henry terminated for, and I quote, "unprofessional conduct and confrontational behavior toward a building tenant." They fired the victim. Prescott then filed a police report claiming that Henry had been belligerent and had initiated physical contact. A false report. A lie designed to bury a 71-year-old veteran. But the building security footage told a different story. Officer Maria Esperanza, badge number 3894, reviewed the footage, interviewed 3 maintenance workers who had witnessed Prescott's behavior in the garage on prior occasions, and filed charges against Landon Prescott. Henry, from his hospital bed, told Officer Esperanza, "I just want the truth on the record, ma'am. That is all I have ever wanted. If you are still with me, you are about to see something you will never forget, like this video right now." 7 weeks later, Landon Prescott walked into my courtroom. And I want you to picture this man. He was wearing a custom Tom Ford suit, slim cut, navy, probably $6,000. No tie, open collar, because of course. those $4,000 sneakers, the Richard Mille on his wrist catching the courtroom lights. His attorney was a woman named Diane Lasco from a Silicon Valley firm that had flown in specifically for this hearing, a firm that charged $2,000 an hour. She was carrying a Louis Vuitton legal tote and had an associate behind her with a laptop already open. Prescott sat down at the defense table, and the first thing he did was open his own phone and check his stock price. In my courtroom, while the charges were being read. Henry sat in the gallery in his 20-year-old brown suit, with his burgundy tie and his cracked polished shoes and his stiff right arm. His granddaughter Sophie's school photo was in his breast pocket. I know that because he told me later. He carried it everywhere. Tell me what you would do sitting in my chair right now. Drop it in the comments. The prosecution presented the evidence. Officer Esperanza testified. The security footage was played, every second of it. Henry asking to file a report, Prescott shoving him, Henry hitting the wall, hitting the floor, Prescott standing over him. The audio was clear. The courtroom went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on carpet. Even Prescott's attorney shifted in her seat. Henry testified. His voice was the steadiest voice I have heard in 43 years. No anger, no self-pity. He described the shove. He described hitting the concrete. He described being fired the next morning from a job he needed to survive. His voice cracked exactly once, when he mentioned that Sophie had asked him, "Grandpa, did you get hurt at work because of me?" Because she thought the reason he worked nights was her medicine, and she felt guilty. I could not help it. There were tears in my eyes. I looked down at my bench for a moment. I took a breath. Then Prescott's attorney made her argument. A misunderstanding, a stressful night. Her client was willing to make a financial settlement. Prescott waved her off. He stood up. He buttoned his Tom Ford jacket and addressed me directly. First, he was dismissive. "Your Honor, I respect the court, but this is a parking garage dispute with a security guard. My time is genuinely worth more than this." Then he got defensive. "I have created over 4,000 jobs in Rhode Island. I was personally invited to the governor's economic summit last year. The mayor has my personal number." Then he got aggressive. He looked at Henry and said, "That man was confrontational with me in my own building. I pay for that garage. I pay for his salary. Or I did, rather." Then he turned back to me and said the line that I will never forget. He leaned forward, put both hands on the defense table and said, "Your Honor, I am going to be completely transparent. My app is worth more than this court. Vantage Technologies has a market cap of $6.3 billion. This building you are sitting in is not worth a rounding error on my balance sheet. I should not be here. Frankly, neither should you." The courtroom went dead silent. That kind of heavy, airless quiet where nobody moves. My bailiff Ray stepped forward half a step. My clerk Sandra looked up at me. I felt my jaw tighten. My heart was pounding, but my hands did not shake. My father's voice was in the back of my mind. My father, who came from Italy and worked in a factory on Federal Hill until his knuckles were raw, who taught me that no amount of money changes what a man is worth, used to tell me, "Watch out for the man who thinks he is better than everybody else. That man is dangerous." And then something happened that Landon Prescott did not see coming. My clerk Sandra stood up. She walked to my bench and handed me a sealed envelope that had been delivered to the courthouse that morning by federal courier. I opened it. I read it. I read it again. The United States Securities and Exchange Commission, in coordination with the Department of Justice, had been investigating Vantage Technologies for 14 months. Securities fraud, insider trading, inflated user metrics used to deceive investors. The $6.3 billion valuation that Prescott had just bragged about in my courtroom was built, according to federal investigators, on fabricated numbers. 200 million users, he said. Federal auditors estimated the real number was closer to 61 million, with the rest generated by bot farms and duplicate accounts. The SEC had filed a civil enforcement action. The DOJ had obtained a federal arrest warrant. 2 agents were in the hallway of my courthouse at that very moment, waiting for my hearing to conclude. The app that Prescott said was worth more than my courtroom was about to be worth nothing, and he was the last person in the building to know. His attorney Lasco turned white. She leaned over and whispered something to her associate. Prescott sat frozen. The arrogance drained from his face like water from a cracked glass, replaced by confusion, then fear, then the pale, hollow stare of a man watching his empire collapse in real time. If you have stuck with me this long, you are one of the truly good ones. Please subscribe. What comes next is the moment everyone has been waiting for. I set the federal matter aside. That was for the agents in the hallway. But I had a verdict to deliver on the case before me. I folded my hands. I took a breath. And I looked at Landon James Prescott. Mr. Prescott, I am fining you $50,000. Every penny of that fine will go directly to Henry Benton to cover his medical expenses, his lost wages, and the income he lost when you had him fired for the crime of doing his job. You will perform 1,000 hours of community service, and I will be very specific. You will perform those hours at the Providence Veterans Affairs Medical Center. You will work in the intake ward. You will push wheelchairs. You will bring meals to veterans who cannot feed themselves. You will sit with men and women who fought for the country that gave you the freedom to build your company, and you will do it in scrubs and a volunteer badge. No Tom Ford suit, no Richard Mille watch, no $4,000 sneakers. You will show up as a human being, nothing more, and you will learn what service actually looks like. I was not finished. I am referring the false police report you filed against Mr. Benton to the Attorney General's office for criminal prosecution. You attempted to destroy this man's livelihood with a lie. That will not stand in my courtroom. Then I delivered the words I had been thinking since I watched that security footage. Mr. Prescott, you told me your app is worth more than this court. You told me your time is worth more than this proceeding. You told a 71-year-old Purple Heart veteran that he was nothing, that he was replaceable. Let me tell you something about Henry Benton. He took a bullet for this country when he was 18 years old. He worked for 50 years. He buried his wife. He buried his son. And at 71, he put on a uniform and sat in your lobby all night so his granddaughter could have her seizure medication. That man is not nothing. That man is everything this country is supposed to be about. And your app, Mr. Prescott, your $6.3 billion app, could not do what Henry Benton does. It cannot sacrifice. It cannot serve. It cannot love a granddaughter enough to work the graveyard shift at 71. In my courtroom, there are no valuations. There are no market caps. There is only the law, and it does not care about your stock price. The courtroom erupted. Applause. People standing. Henry sat very still. His eyes were wet. He reached into his breast pocket and touched something. Sophie's photo. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I believe he was praying. Prescott sat motionless. His attorney was already on her phone. Then the doors opened. 2 federal agents in dark suits entered. They walked to the defense table. Landon James Prescott, you are under arrest pursuant to a federal warrant issued by the United States District Court for the District of Rhode Island. They cuffed him. His Richard Mille caught the light one last time as his hands went behind his back. He looked at Henry as they led him past. He did not say a word. There are no words for what he had done, and I think even he knew that. 6 months later, Landon Prescott was indicted on 23 federal counts of securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Vantage Technologies' stock collapsed. The company was delisted from the NASDAQ within 90 days. Prescott's personal assets were frozen. His waterfront tower was sold at auction. The chrome letters came down. The man who told me his app was worth more than my courtroom left that courtroom with nothing, and eventually faced a federal judge who gave him 11 years. Henry Benton was rehired by Allied Protection Services after the story made the local news, and the company faced a wave of public outrage. His supervisor personally apologized. The Providence Veterans of Foreign Wars Post held a fundraiser for Henry and Sophie that raised over $44,000. Sophie's epilepsy medication was covered for the next 4 years. A local nonprofit donated a newer car, so Henry did not have to take 2 buses to work. Henry went back to the night shift. He told a reporter from the Providence Journal, "I have worked my whole life. I am not going to stop now. I have a granddaughter who needs me." Sophie is 10 now. She made the honor roll last semester. She wants to be a teacher. Henry keeps her report card in the same breast pocket where he keeps her photo. I think about that case every time I see one of those glass towers downtown with a name on it. I think about Landon Prescott telling me his app was worth more than my courtroom. And I think about Henry Benton sitting in the gallery in a suit older than most of the lawyers in my courthouse, with a bullet wound in his shoulder and a school photo in his pocket. And I know who was worth more in that room. It was never even close. My father used to tell me, "Watch out for the man who thinks he is better than everybody else. That man is dangerous." He was right. But I will add something to that. The man who thinks he is better than everybody else is also the most fragile. Take away the money, the title, the corner office, and there is nothing left. Henry Benton had everything taken from him: his health, his wife, his son, his job. And he still got up every morning and put on a uniform. That is not fragility. That is strength, the kind money cannot buy. To anyone watching who has built something, who has wealth, who has power, I am talking directly to you. The people who guard your buildings, who clean your offices, who work while you sleep, they are not beneath you. They are the foundation you are standing on. The moment you forget that, the foundation cracks. To anyone watching who feels invisible, who works a job that nobody thanks you for, who wonders if any of it matters, remember Henry Benton. He was 71. He was tired. He was hurting. And he stood his ground against a billionaire and won. You can too. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If you believe in real justice, I am asking you to do 3 things. Subscribe to this channel so stories like Henry's get the audience they deserve. Leave a comment and tell me about a veteran, a grandparent, someone in your life who kept going when the world gave them every reason to stop. And watch the next video, where a police commissioner tries to arrest a judge in his own courtroom. I promise you, the last 60 seconds will leave you shaking your head. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing that justice is not just a word, it is a promise. And I keep my promises.